My first recommendation for this holiday season is Wolf Hall. I read Wolf Hall early in the summer and I thought, wow, this is truly something incredible, an amazing story about a period we all have had some exposure to, the court of Henry VIII. But this is a story of Henry VIII like no other you will ever read. We experience the court of Henry VIII through the eyes of Oliver Cromwell, the brilliant, conniving, scheming, charming man who fully committed himself to reshape England for himself and for the king. It is by far the most incredible, intriguing, sexy story filled with intrigue in a way that brings the time of Henry VIII to life like it has never been before. You live inside this story. When I read the book, I thought, this has to get nominated for something. A few days later, I learned that it was a long list title for the Booker Prize, and just a few weeks ago, it in fact was the Booker winner. You can recommend this book. First of all, read it. Read this book. And you can recommend it with such joy because anybody who gets this for Christmas is going to love it. So it's Wolf Hall, and it's written by Hilary Mantel, and it's fantastic. My second pick is a book by Michael Chabon, an author we have all fallen in love with over the last many years. He's written for adults and he's written for kids. We remember his story come to life, Wonder Boys, which was, in addition to a great book, was a movie with Michael Douglas. We remember the Yiddish Policeman's Union. Michael Chabon is a unique writer that is widely regarded as one of the best writers in America today. His newest book, which has a title that is absolutely delicious, called Manhood for Amateurs, is an autobiography. It's his own story, but it's an autobiography like none you've ever read before. It's actually a series of anecdotes at different points in time in his life. And he basically expresses what it's like to feel things and experience things as a young man, as a boy, as a young man, as a grown-up. So what it was like, for example, to be at the gathering in Chicago when President Obama was sworn in, what it felt like for him and what it felt like for his son, his little son who was sitting on his shoulders, and what he told his son about that moment in time in American history. It has anecdotes about his first love, his first sexual experience, which you have to read to really appreciate his particular take on that. And throughout the book, he shares not just his experiences, but how his own philosophy of life evolves as he gets older. Although it has a title that makes it seem like it's for men, called Manhood for Amateurs, this is a book that anybody, absolutely anybody, a teenage boy could read this book and like it, a grown-up man could read it, a woman could read it. And I would say, as a woman who has read this book, you feel like this is a man who gets it. He gets it about men, he gets it about women, he gets it about kids, and he gets it about life. One of the things he shares a point of view on is how just overly indulged kids naturally are today. How much kids have at their fingertips at any time. And while he fully acknowledges and embraces the notion that that's part of the time we live in, he has an interesting take on how living in this time makes us think about what we ought to be doing to ensure that children develop a set of values which will serve them well as they grow up. And there are many, many, many points that he makes about life, about the world, how it's unfolding, and it's just a joyful read. I was brought to tears at least 4 times while I read this book. Next book that I want to talk about is a book called The Disappeared by Kim Eichlin. It's been a Heather's pick for a couple of months. It's what I would call a small book. That is, it's a romance. It's a young college student in Montreal falls in love with a young man from Vietnam, a man she finds quite intriguing and a bit exotic. And they have a passionate, intense love affair. And then he decides that he can't stay in Canada any longer, much as he's having a good time in Montreal. He can't stay. He must go back to Vietnam because he knows that his family has suffered unbelievably through the entire Vietnam War, and he feels compelled to go back and help his family heal from the war. But he promises he's going to come back for her, and he's going to come back to marry her. And of course he doesn't. And the story is about how she adjusts to his not coming back and how she eventually goes to find him and what happens to their love in Vietnam. Next book is a book called Stitches, and this is also an autobiography, only it's a graphic autobiography. There probably aren't more than maybe 1,000 words in the entire book. The rest is pictures. It's all graphic pictures, like a cartoon. This, I guarantee, is a biography, an autobiography like none you have ever read. And I promise that if you read this book, you will never forget it. It tells the story of a young boy who, at the age of 13, is taken to the hospital to have his tonsils out, only his vocal cords are removed. And his parents knew on the way to the hospital that his vocal cords were being removed. And they never told him. They never told him on the way, and they never told him afterwards. They never told him what was wrong with him. They never told him why. And this tells his story. And the last book I'll talk about here, so two were HarperCollins books, Michael Chabon book and the Wolf Hall book are both HarperCollins, and we love HarperCollins. The last book is published by two sisters. There are only two people in this publishing house, called Pinky Swear Press, two sisters, and only Indigo will have this book. It's a cookbook. It's called Bite Me. It is the most irreverent, saucy, entertaining, edgy cookbook that we will have this season. It's a cookbook for amateurs, talking about amateurs. Anybody can use this cookbook, including me, and I don't cook. It's the only cookbook I have ever made a Heather's Pick. I can tell you that having tasted at least 70% of the recipes in this 250-page book, the food is scrumptious, as I said, easy to make, and it is an entire experience. It'll help you know what to cook. It'll help you know what music to play. It is filled with anecdotes that will make you laugh out loud. It's got interesting photography throughout that have nothing to do with the recipes, although there's lots of pictures of the actual items that are cooked. It's just an experience. It's a cookbook that is a total experience. So it's called Bite Me. It's only at Indigo. We're the only people who decided we supported the sisters in publishing the cookbook. It's an interesting story because they could not get a publisher. And I think Indigo's going to have a great time with this cookbook, as will everybody who buys it.